and welcome back to a special bonus episode of Tea, Tentacles, and Talk, cozy conversations about LGBTQ plus romance. I'm your host, Chloe Archer, and with me today, I have three amazing guests. I'd love if we could just go around and introduce ourselves. Who wants to start?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I am Kiki Clark. I've been on the show before. I'm very excited to be back again, especially to talk about what we're going to be talking about. I'm gonna hint at it. I'm not going to say what it is.
Keep them in suspense. Yes.
Yes, as long as possible.
Right. Okay, Megan.
Hi, I've also been on the show before, so it feels good to be back. I'm Meghan Maslow, and I write paranormal fantasy and urban fantasy romance.
Okay.
I also won't spoil anything.
And I guess it leaves me, which one of these things is not like the others. I have not been on the show before. I'm Vinni George. I write shifter MPreg, and I'm dabbling in some shifter romantic suspense, and I'm contemporary.
Awesome. Well, our special episode today is a roundtable discussion about the wonderful and amazing Fated Mates Paranormal Romance charity anthology that's coming out September 1st. All of us have stories in the collection. I'll be doing two roundtables, this one and another one with some of the other contributors. And we're going to tell you a little bit about how this collection came to be, about our individual stories, and what you can look forward to. So I'm going to actually send it over to Kiki to tell us a little bit about how this anthology came about, since you're kind of one of our leaders here, our fearless leader in this project.
I wouldn't say fearless.
Mighty leader, mighty.
There you go. I'll go with mighty.
Right.
Definitely not fearless. It's funny because I was thinking about it the other day about the journey that this anthology has gone on. And it started with me and a couple of other authors being invited to a different anthology that was going to be paranormal romance, with the intention of hitting the USA Today bestsellers list. So we signed up. We're like, yeah, this sounds great. And then the more we looked into it, like, it was run by like a company that, like, that's kind of what they did. And we're like, they don't know the romance community. Like, they're not going to know how to market it. Like, they do mostly MF stuff.
Right.
And so, like, the three of us kind of chatted a little bit, and then all of us were like, okay, we should just do our own. And so we pulled out of that one, kind of put together the general idea of what we wanted it to be, with the main theme being fated mates, that one thing that brings all shifter paranormal romancy stuff together, and started inviting people to it. Things did change when the USA Today bestsellers list went away. Do we continue? Do we not continue? And we decided that the majority of us decided to stay. I was very excited. So many people decided to stay, and we're like, yes, it's still for a great cause. So I still want to do it, even though there's no chance of getting that bestseller tag, So I was very excited, and I am still very excited, even though we're getting down to the wire, and I'm like, okay, it's time for me to start earning my keep around here. Getting all, like, the advertising set up and formatting and stuff. So because at this point it's just been like, reminder, it's due here, it's due there. And so now I have to actually lead non-fearlessly, but yes, so that's how it came about. Was randomly got invited to another one, and then we're like, we can do better.
Right. It was a transformative process. It started in one place and it morphed into something else, really wonderful that is actually, in this instance, benefiting two significant charities that are meaningful, I think, to all of us who write any kind of stripe of the rainbow of LGBTQ plus romance. Can you tell us a little bit about the two organizations and how you chose them?
Yeah. So actually I didn't choose them.
Mm,
We all kind of voted on them.
okay.
I did suggest them based on people's suggestions. I was like, okay, we can do this one, the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, or we can do the ACLU's Drag Defense Fund. I'm like, or we could do something different if somebody else has an idea. And it pretty much was split down the middle. People were like, let's do both. I was
Mm,
like, I think we can do both. Like, I think that with this crop of amazing authors, we can raise enough money that it would still be a meaningful impact, even
right.
if we're splitting the funds down the middle. And yeah, with the way things are currently, have been the last year or so, these two different organizations and what they're doing specifically
Mhm.
felt like they were where we could put our money, where it would get the most bang for its buck at this point. If we end up
Right.
doing another anthology in the future, we'll probably do a different charity, something else, try and spread the wealth around. But at
Right.
this moment in time, they felt the most important. And so that's where we wanted to put the money.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really great. And I think, one of many compelling reasons for people who might be on the fence, should I get this anthology or not? Know that 100% of your proceeds, minus whatever Amazon's taking, will
Yes,
can't
100%
control
of
that, sadly.
royalties.
Right.
Yes.
Will be going toward these amazing charities, and for a limited time only, right? Because this is
Yes.
going to be from the beginning of September to the end of October, I believe. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So at the end of October, it will be coming down so that people can take their stories and, do what they want with them. But it will be also in Kindle Unlimited. People who can't spend $10 on an anthology, like, I get it. Like, times are tough. We almost didn't price it at that. We were like, it's not like it's for us. So we want to make as much money as we can for these charities. So we're like, it's got 20 stories, like
Yeah.
20 brand new stories. And most of y'all were closer to 30 than 20K. So they're getting hefty novellas.
4 words left. 4 words.
Oh, I just barely made it. I'm like, you're not even the only one. I think one person had like 3 words, like under the limit. And I'm like, y'all. I actually, right before we got on, was messing around on Vellum, the formatting program, to see if it will be able to be in a paperback. And I think it will, but the font is going to be tiny and the line spacing will be very, like, people won't be able to read it. But if they want that collector's edition, since it will only be available for a limited time, they can put it on their shelves. And so can all of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm going to be able to, I'm like, let's see how far I can slide this font down. Like, let's make the margin a little narrower. Like, you won't be able to read the stories with like a magnifying glass, but you'll be able to look at it beautifully on your shelf. And it's, one more way to make a little bit extra money. So,
Right.
very
And
exciting.
honestly, I think it is a really great deal when you think like 20 authors, amazing authors, by the way. As one of the few newbies in the collection, I was super honored and excited to be in this amazing crowd of writers. But like you said, if a lot of people have like almost 30K, most people often price a novella like that $2.99
Yes.
on Amazon. So when you think 20 of them, you're actually really getting an amazing deal
Of
here
a deal.
for that price.
Yes,
So yeah,
definitely.
I think that's awesome. Well, that's so great. So this of course begs the question, right? When we come back to the whole fated mates thing, this is an incredibly enduring trope within, but particularly within the realm of paranormal. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about what each of you like about the fated mates trope.
I feel like somebody other than me should talk for a little while. What do you two go?
Well, it's different for me as a little bit as a writer or as a reader. I mean, as a
Mm,
reader, I love fated mates because no matter what they get put through, there's going to be a happily ever after.
Right.
And, and I want a strong one. And so no matter what happens there, you're going to get that. So as a reader, love it. As a writer, I like writing it because no matter, you can make the characters have like big problems that in other books, you would end up writing a 200K story trying to get them together because there's just no way, but the pull of the fated mate. So even if they hate each other, no matter what the problem is, like there's that pull that keeps pulling them toward each other. And I think it makes it a really manageable one, especially for someone like me who writes really long. So because it's like, okay, you might be mad, you might think you hate this person right now, but there's still that pull together.
Yes, you're wrong. You're actually perfect for one another.
Exactly. You're wrong right now. You just don't know it.
Go ahead, Vinni.
Oh, okay. So I think my answer is pretty similar. And I actually just asked this as part of a Facebook group giveaway and a newsletter giveaway. And the responses that came back were the same, like that idea that there's somebody out there for you that is fated for you, that there's nothing that can happen that would tear you apart. And I think that that's like the big draw for me. I find it a little more difficult to write, actually. Which Kiki's been on this journey with me for a little while. I think that it was easier for me to write my anthology story, and I'll get to that a little bit later, I think. But I like the tension. So I tend to make my characters have these like big things that they have to overcome before they can even figure out that they're fated mates. But I do still like that in the background, I know that everything's going to work out, and my readers, who read my MPreg know that everything's going to work out, even if there are these big mountains that have to kind of be traversed before they can even get to that point.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know. For me, like you guys said, it's definitely the idea that there is someone or multiple someones. In my books, I've had like thruples before, so it's not always like a 2-person thing. But that they were literally created for you by a higher being, whatever that might be in what you're reading or writing, that was like this person or these people are for you. They're your other half or thirds. I'm just going to go with half. Too much math and people will be like, click. But this person is your other half. Like they complement you in ways that you don't even know that you need. And those are the kind of things that I try and include like in mine. It was surprising to me how often, like as I was writing like my Kincaid Pack series, how often basically all of them are very slow burn, which you wouldn't expect in like a fated mate story, but I think happens quite often actually, because you're like, okay, well, you have to create some sort of tension somewhere.
Yeah.
So it becomes like outside of the coupleness of them, and it's keeping them apart, or they feel like they can't be together for one reason or another, or they fight the pull that they feel for one another, and so it ends up being over halfway into the book and the reader's like, come on, just kiss already, and so you get to play with all those different kind of things, and it's just a lot of fun, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing more like that says romance than soulmates, right? I mean,
yes,
Totally
like the
true.
ultimate.
100%.
Right. Yeah, I think that idea of some kind of like cosmic, or in my story, like interdimensional destiny that happens here, that I think it is a fun romantic fantasy that definitely deviates considerably from real life, right? But it is a fantasy that is like really kind of enthralling, and I think it also kind of reinforces that like ego building notion of like, you are someone's perfect special someone, right?
Yes.
And the characters find this out, and often in the fated mate kind of trope, it is one of those ways in which sometimes the characters learn to value or appreciate things about themselves that are
Yes.
essential to the fated mate partner that they didn't really realize or understand before. And so
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that you can do with it. And I know I'm looking forward to reading all the stories in the
I
collection
know.
as well.
I know. I've been resisting like reading them as they've come in. I'm like, I have work I need to do. I can't just sit here and read,
Right.
several hundreds of thousands of words
Right.
instead of working. But it's been hard. It's been hard.
I bet.
Yes.
And like formatting that many,
I know.
I was like a troublesome person with like header stuff at the start of all my chapters. So,
Yeah. That should be fun. I got like everything copied in. Now I have to go in and do like the actual like formatting stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I
Thank
think I gave
goodness
myself
for
a week.
Vellum, right?
Yes, yeah. Without that, I'd be like, you guys are on your own. Like, I put it together, but we're all just gonna have to like mail our stuff to Amazon and be like, can you put it together for us, please? Crazy.
Okay, so I'd love to ask everybody if we could kind of talk a little bit about like why you individually wanted to participate in this opportunity. Perhaps you started out with the USA Today bestseller kind of run, but as things transformed, why did you decide to continue on? And what did you sort of enjoy most about being part of an anthology?
So I didn't like initially, like the initial draw for me with the first anthology, even before we started this one, was to be able to hit that USA Today bestsellers, because a lot of readers don't know that if you're exclusive to Amazon, which you have to be a part of KU, which a lot of us choose to do so that readers can have access to our books if they can't afford to buy everything. So, but it's a double-edged sword. You can be in it and you can make good money off of it, but then you can't do things like hit lists. So, doing something like an anthology where you can all team up and use each other's audiences and fan bases to try and get the sales that you need to do it was appealing. But even more than that, like when the original 3 leaders, if you will, organizers, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for. The original 3 organizers, like when we were talking about it, like one of the things we kept coming back to was that like it isn't even just the list, it's building that paranormal like writers community, like, and building up each other, because it can be very difficult to get noticed in all romance genres, but even in ours, where contemporary dominates. Like that is where the majority of the biggest named authors are, and a lot of them are very prolific writers putting out a ton of books and stuff. And so when you're writing, especially paranormal, urban fantasy, stuff like that, where it's longer, it takes you longer to write them. So a lot of us are slower at publishing. And people aren't always willing to give it a chance to read it. They're like, oh, I like my, friends to lovers, new adult, that's all I want to read, hockey, whatever. Right. Like they have their things that they want. And so it can be difficult to kind of be like, no, but like, this is good too. So like, that for us, that was like an equal goal, is to take as many paranormal authors as we could with us on the journey to help rise us all up and build bigger fan bases and get to more audiences, and hopefully all come out better in the end. I forgot what the second part of your question was, because I just talked so much.
What did you enjoy most?
What did I enjoy? Thus far, I think I have enjoyed, there have been several things. One of the biggest is how excited readers are for this anthology. Like we had talked about, the price earlier, and when we put it up for pre-order, like my goal was 500. Like I don't even remember if I shared that with everybody in like the Facebook group, but that was my goal, was like, hopefully by the time we go live September 1st, we'll have 500. And we hit 500 in like the first week. Like people were so excited about this anthology. We're at over 1,500 pre-orders at this point. We've probably raised about $10,000 already.
Yeah.
We have almost an entire month left to go, plus 2 months of it being live with Kindle unlimited reads. Like, we're gonna make so much money for these charities. Like, to me, like that's the most exciting part. Like the fans listen to me, I'm like a celebrity. The readers' reactions to it, and what that is going to be able to allow us to do for these two charities that we're so passionate about. So that's my answer.
You kind of answered it for me already. I feel like I don't have anything to say. No, I love doing any kind of multi-author, community building. I just think it's so important because it's really easy, I think, especially for a lot of writers who are a lot more introverted than I happen to be, but to feel isolated, and so doing these kind of things, I think, it starts friendships. It's nice. It's nice to have someone to talk to when you start talking about a particular plot point. They understand that, and you're like, okay. And then when this guy falls over from this magic blast, like, it's really helpful to have that. So, in terms of, the things that I really enjoy and on that side of it, but it's great. It's a charity anthology. It's going to raise money for two, wonderful charities that really need the money. And, and it's hopefully going to give readers what they want, that for once, like it's a big collection of paranormal, like I don't know, for me, I'm just like I'm as excited as any other reader for it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with all of that. And I think for me, I've worked on the editing team for multiple volumes of the Heart to Heart anthology, including the paranormal version of that came out. And this was a really great opportunity for me to jump in and be on the other side of the table. Even though I haven't written a ton of paranormal yet, I have 2 Shifter Unplugged books out with the third on the way. So I'm definitely a new kid on the block when it comes to this genre. And honestly, Kiki and I were actually talking about it earlier. I was kind of thrown into Shifter Unplugged almost on a dare. Another author said, "Hey, you keep talking about wanting to write a narwhal shifter. I dare you to do it for this giveaway." And I said, "Okay, sure. What do I have to lose?"
Accepted.
And then lo and behold, now it's a 4-book series. Where did 15,000 words turn into, 7, 8 times that amount? So, so this is an interesting opportunity too, because there is no MPreg in this anthology, which I think, for the sake of transparency, everyone should kind of know, these are all paranormal stories that do not involve MPreg. So this was yet another kind of opportunity where Kiki was like, okay, you can be involved, but you can't write MPreg, so come up with something else.
You made me sound like the villain.
You're the leader. You've got to crack the whip, right? So, so this was just another kind of push out of my comfort zone. And I'm actually super excited about what I wrote and where that's going to end up. So,
I feel like there's been more than one paranormal series that has started from a dare,
Bet that is no 1,000% true.
Yeah.
Especially some of the ones that you see out there. You're like, that's a choice that come about.
Exactly. Well, as the newest author in the group here today, for me, I was really excited this is my first anthology to be in, so that's exciting in and of itself, right? But it was also kind of an opportunity to challenge myself because Meghan and I relate very much on the fact that we write long. All of my novels so far have been 100,000 word plus, right? And so to write something shorter, I'll be really honest, was so much harder.
So much harder.
I like to do all the world building and all the, fun stuff. And you have to compact things so much
Yes.
more in a shorter story or novella. So it was a way for me to really kind of hone some new skills.
Yeah, it is a skill.
Really
Yeah.
fun.
And
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people don't appreciate how useful of a skill it can be too. Like,
Right.
it's definitely,
Well, you
I'm
know,
glad
it's
I was able to
funny.
crack the whip on you guys. Like, come on, shorten these stories.
With all of 4 words to spare, right?
Yeah. No, like I can easily write if it's a mystery, I can do a mystery in 3,000 words. Like that's not much of a challenge because it's solving the issue at the end. But for a romance, like people want the meet cute. They want the build up. They want to see it develop, and then they want the happily ever after. And so when they're like, well, you only have this amount of space to do and to make it satisfying.
Yes.
That's a challenge to get the readers really invested.
Well, you got to have some spiciness in there too, and like
that's true. That's true.
Gotta have some spiciness. Yeah,
all of it is. It's a very difficult balance, I think. I think I certainly encourage other writers out there, if you get an opportunity to participate in an anthology and you haven't done shorter stuff before, it's a really great opportunity to kind of expand your wheelhouse. And there are also plenty of readers out there who like shorter stuff. And so it's a way to kind of think about diversifying what you publish as well, because sometimes you can potentially alternate between novels and some shorter works, and you're going to reach sometimes audiences that overlap and sometimes audiences that diverge considerably. And so, just cool opportunities in that regard.
A word of warning. You will have people who will complain about the length of it.
I was just going to say that.
No matter how much you warn them, this is a short story, or this is a novella, or this is only X number of words or pages or whatever. It's like the readers just skip over that part and then they read it and they're like, this wasn't long enough.
Yes.
Go pick up one of my 90K books then. Like that's all I have to say.
I even had someone say that about an 80K book once. They're like, this is longer. And I was like, are you serious right now?
You can never make them happy. Oh, yeah. No, but I always tell, I'm like, you will always have somebody say that, like either to you, interview, on Facebook, whatever, like expect it going in. But like you said, it can be very useful to have that skill, to have that in your catalog, to use it as, a cookie to get people to join your newsletter, it's useful. And so even if people complain, I'm going to always push authors to do it.
Well, I think the other thing too with that is that sometimes readers will complain about it, but a lot of it's a compliment because they want more.
Yes. And it's usually how it's phrased. Yes.
Right?
It's usually like, oh, I really enjoyed this. I just wish it was longer. And I'm like, but then it wouldn't be that story. It would be a different story.
Yeah.
Right.
Take what you're given and be happy. Gosh.
That's me. That's me, the writer speaking. Me, the reader's like, why didn't you make it longer?
Yeah, right. And we all have that inside of us, the writer part of us and the reader part of us. And just know we're never satisfied either. We're always like, this is good. It could have been longer. I could have done more sex.
Well, see, that just opens up possibilities for you to write little bonus chapters.
That's true. That's true.
Visit and share in your newsletter, or expand the original, stuff like that.
Yes.
I think one thing I've learned to like about short stuff is like, okay, there's still possibilities for me to come back to this in some way if I want to down the line. Like, I'm happy with how it ended here, but there could be new adventures for these characters somewhere else down the line. So just a note, a preface to all the viewers, listeners, 30K was our max.
And that was, I extended that. The original limit was 20K. But because we did lose some authors, like that was before you joined us, Chloe. Because we lost some authors after we lost the ability to hit the list. I was like, you know what? because there were several people who may or may not be present who were very concerned about being limited to 20K. So I was like, let's go to 30. Of course, then immediately everyone's like, oh, yes, I need it. And I'm like, okay, we can't all do 30 or we're not going to be able to do a paperback. Again, it'll be microscopic. The letters are going to be, you're going to be like,
get a magnifying glass.
Yes. But it'll look so nice on your shelf.
Well, I think this is the perfect segue to kind of talk a little bit about what our individual stories in the collection are about, to kind of give viewers a little sneak peek of what's ahead. And personally, I know I'm fascinated just to see how diverse and unique all of these paranormal stories coming together are. Even though we're sharing the same trope, I just know people are going to come at this from so many different kind of angles and perspectives. And that's what I'm really excited about as a reader. So I don't know who would like to start first, but we'd love to hear a little bit about your story.
Me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Vinny, you've been real quiet. You go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. So the second I was invited to this and was told I was not allowed to write MPreg, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And so my MPreg stories are based on a land shifter falling in love with a sea shifter. And I have become obsessed with researching marine mammals. Which of course lends itself very nicely to our dear friends, the killer whales. So I am writing killer whale, shifter romance,
Hashtag
shifter
Team Orca.
And it's actually the beginning of what will be a 4-book series following 4 brothers, and they're going to be solving this big overarching crime with all sorts of little wiggly side plots that are going to happen throughout. And then I'm also kind of edging this into a little bit of urban fantasy. So there'll be just a little bit of a touch of magic that kind of pervades throughout. But yeah, so my story is called Black and White. It is ORCA book 0.5. And it is Nero, who is our orca killer whale bounty hunter, meeting and falling for his little hacker sea otter fated mate.
Talk about a size difference.
A little one.
Right?
So yeah, so that's that, and we meet the brothers and we kind of get a feel for what's going to happen. And then ORCA will actually end up, we find out in this story, so I don't feel like I'm really ruining anything for anyone, is actually going to stand for the Organization for the Recovery of Criminals and Assets. So,
nice. So clever.
The Orca brothers will form their own little thing.
Nice.
Please tell me that the orcas destroy a yacht or something in this
first scene in the book.
Yes.
And it is less of a destruction and more of a free willy moment that happens that then knocks the guys that Nero is chasing out of the boat and onto the dock so they can be properly arrested by the authorities.
It is pretty fantastic.
But there will be some other destruction that happens. Book 2 will actually see a great white shark with fated mate as a killer whale, and they are going to wreak some havoc. So it'll be very good. I'm really excited about the way that the short turned out, and then again this little push that now has turned into my 20,000 words, which have turned into a 4-book series. Thank you.
Right. Again, like just a note for our new or aspiring writers out there that sometimes doing a short like this for an anthology is a way to kickstart a new potential series. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, Jonah and the Narwhal, which was my first MPreg book, started as a 15K short, and I had intended to do nothing else with it. It was meant to be just, I did it on the dare, I did it, yay. But the response from readers was so great. I was like, well, I could write a second half of this. And then the second half turned into, well, I gotta write a book 2. And then book 3 turned into, well, we need a book 3. And now I'm 40K through book 3 and going, well, there has to be a book 4.
Right.
So
obviously.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it really was an easy spiral.
Yeah. So it happens so easily. So mine is the prequel to a new spin-off series from my Kincaid Pack series called the Silver Oak Pack, which we briefly meet them in the 5th Kincaid Pack book, I think. I have that right. So very briefly, like they're mentioned or whatever, but I always knew I was going to come back to them. So my story is the prequel to that, and it features a tiger shifter and his best friend, who is a human who has never known that shifters and witches and everything exists until he reads from the wrong book and accidentally casts a spell on his best friend that reveals that they are fated mates. And you know, I really tried to hit the mummy vibes, like, oh, no harm can come from reading from a book. So it's very unintentional and but fun. And then the rest of the series focuses on the rest of that pack, and I'm very excited about it. I think that's all I got. Anything more, I feel like, is spoilery. So
Okay.
That's all you're getting from me.
Yeah. So mine, okay. So funny enough, it's going to be set in a series I'm already doing, that my Charm City Chronicles, which is kind of my grittiest series of the bunch, and set in Baltimore, the original Charm City. And it's funny because that whole series came about from a multi-author series.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I wrote a book for it, and then I was supposed to be a standalone. I have yet to been able to write a standalone.
Same.
So then I was like, oh, well, these characters, I didn't expect it. Like Vinny, I didn't expect it to hit as well as it did. Like it just went crazy, and people were like, when's the next one? And who's this story and this story? So I just kept going. So I set it in that world. And in my case, it was a little hard in the sense that my characters tend to be very intertwined. And because I wanted to make this so that if someone had never read this series before, they could walk into this, get enough of the world building, not be confused, with like, well, what's going on here and why this? And, it was a little bit challenging, but mine is really about a character who's been in a supporting role. I have in that series, a lot of characters who are very fighting for page time. Like they're like, I'm important. I'm a little like over the top, like, and this is not that character. This character is like, honestly, he's like the most solid guy out there. And you wonder why isn't he paired up with someone? He's such a good guy, and he's a caretaker. He's just always plays these very supportive roles. And he just been kind of waiting his turn. And I thought, this is the perfect opportunity to give him that. And then, of course, because it's me and I like fuckery, I decided that naturally he wasn't going to get what you'd think he'd get. And I have a real penchant for sort of the enemies or enemy-ish to lovers, like that. That's sort of my jam. It's my favorite trope, I think. And so I started from the whole point of the Pride and Prejudice of, even though you're just a bird, I accept you as my mate, because he's a raven shifter. So Abe is a raven shifter, and he's in a roost. His alpha is a very important one in the first book in the series and all this. And so he, like I said, he's been waiting his turn. And Michael is a direwolf shifter. And so I did all this research on direwolves. Originally, I was like, well, it's a direwolf. They got to be like from Russia or whatever. They're not. They're North American. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess he's from Montana. Like it was just kind of, and then they had this article, and they think direwolves might have been red, like a fox. I was like, oh, I guess he's a redhead, because I had never, and he's also a supporting character that people had seen in the series. But I had never actually done, like, I realized I had never described his hair color, because he'd never taken a center stage role. And I was like, well, I guess he's a redhead, and it just kind of went from there. But basically, it's kind of the Pride and Prejudice thing where he really messed up. Like he screwed up, and he's got to now convince Abe that he's worthy of him. It's, so. Yeah. And of course, on top of it, there's all this stuff, like Baltimore. There's so much stuff going on in Baltimore. There's always something. You think it's going to be a very straightforward thing, and then it's like wham from the side, because that certainly happens to them.
Wow, that sounds great. I'm the only one in our group who didn't do a shifter. So mine is the Demon and the Librarian, and it's part of a new series I'm writing called Monsters Hollow. And it is a cozy monster romance series set in a small town that's like a sanctuary haven town for what humans would understand as monsters, but that I call other kind. Essentially, some of them are from this realm and some of them are from other dimensions, essentially. But this is sort of a magically protected little town where they can live without fear of xenophobia and violence and stuff like that. And it's mostly peopled by various other kind beings, but there are a handful of humans who come to live in the town, and one of them is the new librarian for a night school in town for some of the nocturnal residents in Monsters. Well, the humans call it Monsters Hollow. It's technically called Mystic Hollow. And so he, being a curious librarian, he has become addicted to this new soap opera called The Young and the Monstrous that has all these other kind characters on it. And they introduce this new demon character, and he decides, hubba hubba, demons are hot. I need to research and learn more about demons because that's what librarians do. And so he goes through stacks and he finds a mysterious book there that isn't cataloged. And how on earth did that end up on his shelf? And so naturally he opens it and accidentally summons a dandy of a demon who is his mate. And all kinds of funny shenanigans and things happen from there. Because he is like he doesn't buy into this mumbo jumbo of fated mates. What? And so, yeah. So that's kind of where my story fits into the collection. So even just in talking with the four of us, like I'm excited about the radically different kind of directions that we've gone. I'm so pumped to read all of these stories, and I know readers will be too. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what you found maybe easiest or hardest about writing your specific story? And what is something fun about your story that you think readers are really going to enjoy?
Well, I'll go first because the answer for me is obvious. It's short.
Yeah.
The hardest part was keeping it in 30K. I tend to write multi-threaded stories. So like I admire people who can literally write a coffee shop scene and they have the two characters who meet up and it's so sweet and they have coffee and they talk and it's just like, and you're just like gripped by it, right? And you want to be I can't write that. Like my characters are having coffee and a dead body crashes through the window or a dragon, like falls onto the building. And like, I mean, it's just the way that I always have to have such, and I often have several threads going with external plot. You can't do that with shorter stories. You can have maybe one extra other than the romance, So to me, that was so hard. And I probably spent almost as long on this story as I would on one that was 80,000 because I had to keep throwing threads out. Yeah. I'd be like, wait, I don't have enough room to finish that. And so I would be going down this path and I was like, oh, this is the best idea, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, and I had that so many times in this one where I had to set this, I was like, oh, okay, just set it aside. Maybe you can use it in another book, maybe you can use it later on in the series. So that was for me, the hardest part. And then what do I think will be fun for the readers? I try to do a lot of cool stuff with Baltimore. Baltimore is a character in its own right. Yeah. So I set it at the Lord Baltimore Hotel. And I've had my beta readers were like, is this true? Like they're all asking me, is this true? Well, the Lord Baltimore Hotel is one of the 10 most haunted hotels in the country. And it has a really interesting history. So I took one of the ghosts that they actually is there. And I used her in the story. Because that's where they were holed up. They're bodyguards in this one. So it's like forced proximity because they're always put on the same shift together. It's like can't get away from each other. So I think things like that. And I also have a 1970s caddy in there, which I had to do so much research on.
Oh,
It was fun. It was really fun. And I got to introduce some new types of characters, some new creatures to the world. So I think that all that will be, and then there's just the Pride and Prejudice. It's always fun to watch someone have to grovel. Like,
Oh,
Yes. Yes. You got to earn it now.
yeah, you got to
'Cause
earn
you
it.
ruined it.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yes. I feel like the hardest part for me is probably because it is the spin-off of an existing series and an intro to a new one. So balancing that world building enough that like brand new readers will be able to be like, okay, this is an interesting world, but readers who are like, yes, I'm so excited about this new series because I love the old one, aren't bored with that, you know? And so keeping it well balanced. And then I think the thing that they'll like the most or find fun about it will be that this pack is allowing me to introduce vampires and like the mythology behind them that's going to be part of my universe. Because before that, like they weren't there because like they were thought to be extinct. And so then it turns out that there is a vampire in this pack who is the second in command. And so
Cool.
that's all we knew about him in the original series. Like you don't meet him, you just know that he's there. And so you get to meet him in this prequel and start to learn a little bit about why they're different than what you traditionally think of when you think of vampires. So I think people kind of like that. Put my own little twist on it.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about yours?
So I think what was hardest for me was figuring out a stopping place, because I will say, again, for the sake of full disclosure, my story is very much a happily for now, not a happily ever after. And I feel like it was finding that balance of like, where can I kind of peak the suspense, but also make sure everybody's in a really good place relationship wise, knowing that the wheels are going to fall off the bus here very shortly. So that was, I think, the hardest. And being that this is my first romantic suspense foray, that was a really interesting balance to try to find, because it's a whole new genre for me. But it was a lot easier to write than my MPEG Fated Base. So I'm definitely all in on this series. But so that was like kind of the tricky part. What do I think is going to be most fun for readers? It's killer whale shifters. I mean, there really is. There's sea pandas, and there are sea panda jokes, and there's commentary about Shamu that happens. Where Nero is very upset that every time he like brings in a skip, that they have to make some sort of stupid Shamu joke, and so that's kind of a pervasive thing. There's also a very funny scene that just makes me laugh, and my sister, who is my biggest critic, was actually like, yeah, more of that, because that's hilarious. That has to do with a very small tea towel.
Oh,
and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I'm intrigued now.
Naked shifter, very small tea towel. That's all I'll say.
Connect the dots.
Well, like Megan, the hardest for me was the length issue. I got to like something like 21,000 words, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna try to wrap this up, and I still need to do X, Y, and Z. And so I had a much more elaborate storyline and intersecting plot line that I was like, I gotta take it out. Like, that's not gonna happen. It would have been fun, but it just could not fit in the parameters of the time or the word count that I had. There are a lot of fun things. Mystic Hollow is like this really quirky small town that's quite fun to visit. I think people will enjoy that. But particularly they can look forward to some dirty limericks that are involved in the demon summoning. And I won't say much more than that, but I have a particular love of incorporating bad poetry and now dirty limericks that I write in different stories. And so I can't resist sometimes when there's an opportunity. So I think folks will enjoy that part of my story.
Definitely.
I hear ya.
Okay, well, we are getting close to the end of our amazing roundtable here. By the time that viewers are going to get to see this particular bonus episode, the anthology will have just come out. So I want to give everyone a chance to also do a quick plug for any other upcoming release they have in the next couple of months that readers can look forward to, in addition to the Fated Mates collection that will be out now.
Okay, I'll go first this time.
Yeah, sure.
Look at that. I jumped in.
I'm so happy.
So book 3 in my Land and Sea Shifter Mpreg series will be out the first week in October, right before GRL, and that is called Dominic and the Dolphin. It is an enemies to lovers, obviously land shifter, sea shifter, fated mate situation. And I started out very slowly with these guys, but they have quickly become my favorites. And over the last couple of days, their story has really come together. So I'm really excited for everyone to get that one in October.
Wonderful.
I'm not allowed to talk about any of my projects right now.
It's a mystery over here.
I know, like there is a Christmas one coming out, but I can't say anything about it. There's some other things on the horizon, but I'll just say we'll see.
All right. Well, I guess I'll talk about my upcoming stuff then. I have later this month, since today's September 1st, I have the final novella in my Forever Family trilogy coming out called Faker. And it is my first time having written, I don't know what tense to use. Since it's a month from now. Fake dating, friend. I've written Friends to Lovers before, but it's my first time writing fake dating. And then it also has Friends to Lovers, By Awakening, and I have to keep it all in like 30 to 40K. So that should be an extra fun little test for me. And then I have, what else do I have? Oh, I have a co-write with E.M. Lindsay coming in November that at this point we haven't shared that much, but in September we'll have shared more. So it is the first in a new series for us called the Trident Agency, and it is about supernatural creatures who do like personal protection for others. That's what the Trident Agency does, is personal protection. And so the first book, called Sunshine, is a grumpy hellhound who his friends think it's funny to call him Sunshine, having to bodyguard Prince of the Sirens, who is half human, half siren, so he's got identity issues, and is a brat and doesn't want to take the threats against his life serious, and them falling in love unwillingly. Like it is fated mates, but in like a very subtle way, in that like neither one think because of who they are that they get to have a fated mate. Like being half human, Remy doesn't think that he gets to have one. And then there's a lot of like propaganda about hellhounds like in that universe, and because they're like a combination of different creatures, they also don't get to have fated mates, and like they're untrustworthy and can't be, they can't control themselves, and so it's very, very fun getting to build this brand new world with M, and we're very excited about the series. So that's coming in November, and then I have hopefully my first standalone. It will not have any more after it. Stop shaking your head, Vinny. It is connected to my Kincaid Pack series and my Silver Oak series, but will be its own entity by itself, not a part of those series, called The Mobster's Mate. My first time writing mafia romance, fated mates, human mobster, jaguar shifter. It's gonna be a great time. So that's
You
what
see what
I have
I'm
coming
saying?
up.
Do you see what I'm saying? There's absolutely no way that's going to stand alone.
Yeah, there really isn't. I'm sorry.
There's already,
No.
I've barely even like done any planning, and there's already like
The side characters.
the mobster's like second in command, who is a shifter, who I'm like, how could I bring him into another series so that I can keep it a standalone and give him a story?
Yep.
But it's going to be a standalone. Mark my words.
Should we put money on it now, Megan?
Should we get that line going? Start the betting pool.
That's going on.
It's not going to happen.
It's not looking good for you, Kiki. No.
You're supposed to support me in my delusions.
By the way, I did think about, I do have two things I can talk about. I just realized.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
One, in about 2 weeks, I have the Italian translation of Cat's Chance in Hell coming out. So yay,
Excellent.
that'll be out in the market. And for this story, my story for the anthology is called As the Raven Flies. And it's already, when I started it ages ago, I had already booked Greg for it. So that will be out soon after, after it comes back to me.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
That's what I can talk about.
There you go. There you go. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like when you write in paranormal, it's like really difficult to do a standalone, because with the world building and all of the necessary cast of characters you have to flesh out that world, even if you think, oh, it's just going to be this one, you're going to get the readers who are like, what about this guy though? I want to know his story. He was on page for like 2 seconds, but what's his story? That kind of thing. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But
there'll be another standalone.
Exactly.
With the disclaimer that says this is absolutely not connected to the other book at all, even though the characters are the same and they appear together on page, but it's not.
You don't have to
connected.
read them together, so it makes them stand.
Right. So is that how it works?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So mean.
Look, the first book in my series are standalones.
There you go. All the first in series are standalones.
Yeah, it didn't end that way, but
Right.
well, I can say that for in terms of what I have coming up after Fated Mates collection, the first full-length novel in the Monsters Hollow series, The Orc and the Manny, will be out September 22nd, and it is about an orc professor who has kind of retired to write more of his historical monographs for people, and he becomes the guardian of 2 young orcling children unexpectedly, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head, and so he has to hire himself a nanny, and he gets a Manny instead, who is a delightful human named Max, who I like to say is a cross between Nathan Lane's character in The Birdcage meets Mary Poppins.
Here for it.
He is
That's the marketing. That's the marketing right there.
You don't need a blurb, just write that.
You don't need a blurb. That's it.
And so, yeah, it's all about them meeting and falling in love and taking care of these 2 little orcling children. So it's going to be cute and fun. And
we don't have nearly enough nanny stories in Romance, I feel like. So anyone who's thinking about writing one, write it now, send it to me. You don't even have to publish it. I know, right?
I was telling a friend recently, I'm like, I don't have more books I'm going to write involving a lot of kids.
I love it. I love it.
It's fun, but it's hard. don't have any children of my own, but I am the eldest of 6 children, several of whom were born quite a while after me, like when I was in high school. So I have a lot of experience taking care of young children, but don't have any of my own. And so, yeah, sometimes, yeah, I find there's this balance of, well, you got to make sure the kids are likable, but they're also like realistic enough.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
not
Some people do not
over
balance
too much
that
of
well.
the show, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a delicate balance, but hopefully I pull it off. So
Yeah, there's so often
If
I'll
you'd
be
like to borrow, if you'd like to borrow my 9-year-old, he's great for this kind of thing
I
because
was gonna
he is
say I may
often
message
likable
you.
and very close to being gently nudged out a second story window. So it's a likable, not likable situation all the time.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, the kids are 8, so they're in a close
there you go.
age range, and they have
Yeah,
a 3-minute health
perfect.
hound, and oh yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah.
But he's like, I got you.
If you need a sensitivity reader for those children, I got you 100%.
Awesome. I will be consulting you both. Well, I want to thank everyone for being part of this roundtable today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And I hope that readers will take an opportunity to check out the Fated Maids Paranormal Romance charity anthology. It's really supporting such a wonderful cause. And we hope that you enjoy all of the fantastic stories in this collection. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll be back again soon. Bye.
Bye.